We shall move on now to part 2 on participation in Malaysia. So previously, we have looked at sections 34, 35, 37, and 149. Now, these are where the participants actually jointly perpetrate in one way or another, right? Whether they committed a criminal act in furtherance of a common intention, or they did the criminal act with criminal knowledge or intention, or they cooperate by doing one of several acts, or the offense was committed by a member of an unlawful assembly. Now, moving on, we're going to look at sections 108, abetment, and also very quickly 120A, which is criminal conspiracy. So 108 first, abetment. Now, 108 defines what is an abettor. So a person abets an offense if they abet the commission of an offense, or they abet the commission of an act, and the act would amount to an offense if it was committed by a person capable of law of committing an offense with the same intention or knowledge as that of the abettor, right? So the abettor is one who abets in the commission of an offense or in the commission of an act, in which act would have been an offense. But how can one actually abet? 108 doesn't tell us, but 107 tells us. So 107 lists down 4 ways how a person can abet the commission of an offense or abet the commission of an act, which itself is an offense. There are 4 ways of how there can be an act of abetment. First would be under 107A, if we instigate. Secondly, under 107AA, commands. Thirdly, conspire. And finally, if you intentionally aid by doing any act or illegal omission, the doing of that thing. Let's look first at 107A, instigates, right? You abet if you instigate any person to do that criminal act or to do the act which is criminal. Now, in the High Court case of Datuk Haji Harun, Haji Idris, and others, it was held that instigation, right, consists of facts which amount to active suggestion. So you can instigate a person by suggesting, why don't you commit this crime? Or support, I will support you, right? I will be there for you, right? Or stimulation, right, for the commission of the main act or offense. So you can instigate by suggesting, supporting, or stimulating the person to commit that offense. And advice, giving a person's advice can also be considered to be an instigation if the advice was meant to actively suggest or stimulate the commission of an offense, right? So that's how a person can be said to have instigated another, right? To have committed to be abetting another by instigating the other. Another case, Datuk Tan Cheng Swee, very similar, right? The words of that the court used is very similar. Instigation means that the abettor actively suggests or stimulates the commission of a principal offense. And again, it says that advice can amount to instigation if it is intended to actively suggest or stimulate the principal offense. And the abettor also must necessarily know all the facts which constitute the principal offense. Now, if you look at explanation 1 to section 107, it also provides that a person can instigate by willful misrepresentation or a willful concealment of material fact which he is bound to disclose, right? If you by willful misrepresentation voluntarily causes or procures or attempts to cause or procure a thing to be done, then you are said to have instigated, right, the doing of that thing. So just by making a willful misrepresentation. And again, back in the case of Datuk Tan Cheng Swee, Justice Ajab Singh says that instigation by willful misrepresentation is well illustrated under explanation 1 of section 107. So the illustration is quite good. It talks about A, who's a public officer, like a police officer like that, authorized by a warrant from a court to arrest Z. Now, okay, quite a number of characters, right? A, right, is go to apprehend Z. Now B, knowing that C is not Z, willfully represents to A that, hey, well, you're looking for Z, that's Z, but actually that's C. So here, B abets by instigation the apprehension of C because it was by willful misrepresentation. Now, it can also be by willful concealment, but this is concealment of a fact which he is bound to disclose, right? Which is bound to disclose. Now, instigation by willful concealment, according to Justice Ajaib Singh, again, still in the case of Datuk Tan, of a material fact occurs only when there is some duty imposed which a person is obliged to disclose. Okay? So if you conceal something that you are legally obliged to disclose, then it can be considered to be instigation, right? It must involve a breach of duty imposed by law and not merely a breach of departmental rule of conduct or discipline. So you can actually conceal something, and as long as you are not legally obliged to disclose it, then you will not be committing offense. But if you conceal something that you are legally obliged to disclose, it can be instigation. And finally, the provision talks about instigates the person to do that thing. The instigation must be to do that particular act, the criminal act, or the act that is considered to be criminal. Now, in the case of Baby John, right? Baby John, he instigated a group of people to go for a march, right? It's like a protest kind of thing. They were going to go for a peaceful march, supposedly peaceful. But he did tell them that, right, you must complete the march, right? You must reach the finishing line, right? Wherever they told them that we're all going for a march and we must march from this point to this point. And you have got to make sure that you reach to the end point, even if the armed forces try to prevent you. Even if the armed forces try to prevent you, you must still finish the march. So some of them, they actually fought with the armed forces, members of the armed forces, and injured them. Okay? But it was held that Baby John cannot be said to have instigated them to cause injury. All he said that you must finish it even if you're prevented by the soldiers. He did not instigate them to injure the soldiers. So therefore, he is not liable for instigation. Okay, right. So next would be B, conspiracy. Now, AA basically is commands any person to do that thing. It's a new addition to section 107. That's why it's put there AA. And it's pretty straightforward, right? And it's usually used to talk about the boss, right? The big boss. He commands people to commit the offense, and therefore he is said to have abetted in the commission of the offense. Whereas B talks about conspiracy, right? And conspiracy here you see is one or more persons in any conspiracy for doing the thing. But it's not just engages with the other person, right? There must be a further act or illegal omission that takes place in pursuant of that conspiracy and in order to do that thing. Okay, let's look at the first part, right? You need to engage with one or more other person or persons. So to conspire, you need to conspire with somebody else. You cannot conspire with yourself. Okay? Right? So there need to be other person or other persons. And they need to engage with one or more of other persons. And in the case of Datuk Haji Harun, the court held that here conspiracy consists in a combination of agreement. Now, agreement is arguably the key thing when it comes to conspiracy, right? The agreement to do some illegal act or to effect some illegal purpose by illegal means. So a group of people come together, or at least more than one person, right? You conspire with another person, there must be an agreement. And proof of the agreement, proof of the conspiracy need not be a direct proof, but can be a matter of inference. You can infer that there was an agreement, right, from the acts that the accused has done in pursuant of that criminal purpose in common between them. Okay, right? So that's basically conspiracy. The key thing here is that not only must there be the agreement, you see the second part say that if an act or illegal omission takes place in pursuant to that conspiracy and in order to to the doing of that thing. So A and B may agree. Okay, let's go back first, before you go to 8. A and B may agree to commit an offense, right? They agree that they want to go and rob Family Mart, for example. Okay, we will go and rob Family Mart tomorrow. So there is an agreement, but it's still not considered to be an conspiracy under 107. Even though there's an agreement to commit a crime, there must be an act or an illegal omission that takes place pursuant to that conspiracy and in order to the doing of that thing. So if A goes and buy a knife tonight in order to commit robbery with that knife, then the conspiracy has been committed because he did an act that took place in pursuant of that conspiracy, because they agreed to rob, so he went to buy the knife and he bought the knife in order to be able to commit the robbery. And finally, C, aiding, right? Intentionally aids by an act or by an illegal omission the doing of that thing, right? Which is said to have abetted. Okay, person abets the doing of that thing who intentionally aids by doing a positive act or by an omission. In explanation 2, it provides that whoever, either prior to or at the time of the commission of an act, does anything to facilitate the commission of that act and thereby facilitates the commission thereof is said to aid the doing of that act. So it can be before the commission of the act or at the time of the commission of the act. And what he does is that he facilitates, right? So Dr. Haji Harun's case held that abetment by aiding takes place by the commission of an act, intends to facilitate and does in fact facilitate the commission of an offense. So the court basically just referred back to explanation 2, where there is shown to be a positive act of assistance voluntarily done by a person with a knowledge of the circumstances constituting the offense. The abetter is guilty of abetment by aiding. So if you see somebody running towards the door and you hold the door open for that person, you help the person go through, right? That will probably not be an abetment of an offense unless you know, right? You need to have the knowledge of the circumstances, unless you know that he was actually trying to escape from being arrested by the authorities. Then it may be considered to be a positive act of assistance. Okay, so there must be a positive act of assistance. In the case of T. Tian Seong, right? Case of T. Tian Seong, this was a case where the accused, where a group of people, they were actually found guilty for exhibiting an obscene show. Basically, they screened a pornographic movie. Or if you read the facts of the case, you say that they were screening a blue film. These days, we don't refer to it as blue film, but basically it means a pornographic movie, I guess. And the court held that those who attended the screening of that show, right, cannot be said to have aided the offense, because it cannot be said to be a positive act of assistance. It may be an encouragement, but it cannot be considered to be a positive act of assistance, right? So mere attendance is not considered to be a positive act of assistance in that case. Now, there are quite a number of explanations to Section 108 also, which you need to take note. The first explanation is that the abetment of an illegal omission may amount to an offense, even if the abettor may not himself be bound to do that act. Right? Now, a good example for this would be instigating a mother not to send her sick child to the doctor. Right? So the mother has a duty to ensure that the child is sick or unwell to send the child to the doctor. Okay? But if you instigate the mother not to do that, then you are considered to have committed the offense, to be an abetting in the offense, even if you do not have the duty to send the child, but you instigate the mother who has a duty, and you instigate her to omit to carry out that duty. Explanation 2, right? To constitute the offense of abetment, it is not necessary that the act abetted should be committed, or the effect requisite to constitute the offense should be caused. So this shows the incorrect nature of the offense of being an abettor under the penal code. Okay. However, if you look at 107, explanation 2 would probably not apply to 107C when you talk about aiding. Because you talk about aiding in the commission of an offense. So for that, you need to show that the offense need to be committed. However, for the other offenses like instigation, commands, or conspiracy, it's not necessary that the act abetted should be committed. Explanation 3, it's not necessary that the person abetted should be capable by law of committing an offense, or that he should have the same guilty intention or knowledge as the abettor, or any guilty intention or knowledge. So you can instigate a person who's of unsound mind or a child to commit an offense, and you are still considered to be have committed the offense of abetting, even if the person that you abetted is not capable by law to commit the offense. Explanation 4, the abetment of an offense is an offense, therefore the abetment of an abetment is also an offense. Okay, so you can instigate a person to conspire to commit the offense, or you can command a person to aid another to commit the offense. Okay, so an abetment of an abetment is an offense. And finally, explanation 5, it is not necessary to the commission of offense about abetment by conspiracy that the abettor should concert the offense with the person who commits it. It is sufficient if he engages in the conspiracy in pursuant in which the offense is committed. Right? Now, this is pretty straightforward. Basically, when you are involved in a conspiracy, you don't need to be in direct contact with the person who actually commits the offense. And this is illustrated, right, in the illustration. So A concerts with B a plan to poison Z. A should administer the poison. Right? There's an agreement, but it's their conspiracy. B then explains the plan to C, mentioning that a third person is to administer the poison, but without mentioning A's name. So C agrees to procure the poison and procures it and delivers it to B for the purpose of its being used in the manner explained. So you see there's conspiracy already because there's an agreement and then there was an act done in pursuant, in furtherance of that agreement. But C doesn't even know who A is. Right? And A goes on to administer the poison and Z dies. So even if A and C have not conspired together, right, but C has engaged in the conspiracy in pursuant of which Z has been murdered. So therefore, C has committed the offense of conspiracy under this section. Now the punishment is found in section 109, right? Generally, it will be the same punishment of the offense. Okay, but you can see the other provisions also. But you don't really need to know the details of punishment. You're not usually required to talk about the punishment. You're just required to talk about whether the person can be found liable for the offense or not. Not so much of if he's guilty, what should he be punished with? Okay, finally, criminal conspiracy. Now, although conspiracy is found under 107, specifically 107B, there's also another provision, 120A, criminal conspiracy. Now, although it is worded differently, at the end of the day, we're going to see that it is basically the same. So if a person commits conspiracy, he can be charged for either being an abettor under 107B, or he can be charged for committing the offense of criminal conspiracy under 120A, because both also basically are the same. So don't ask me why it is there. In fact, there really isn't a need for 120A because it is sufficiently covered under 107B. But anyway, perhaps it's a safeguard to ensure that there are no loopholes, and those who are involved in conspiracy will definitely be charged for an offense. And here you see that the criminal conspiracy is when two or more persons, right? So two or more persons. Okay, so it can be two or it can be more. Under 107B, it talks about if one person conspires with at least one other person. So basically, it's also two or more, right? And they agree or cause to be done an illegal act or an act by illegal means. Okay, so it will be designated as a criminal conspiracy. So what's illegal? Illegal is defined under section 43. Okay, we should have looked before last semester. And there must be an agreement or cause to be done an illegal act. So in the case of Hirama, this was a case where there was an agreement to kill using magic powers. Now, while the court say that even if they were to doubt whether you can actually kill using magic powers, at the end of the day, the bottom line is that the agreement was to kill. So the agreement was to commit a criminal to do an illegal act. Or it can be an agreement to do an act which by itself is not illegal, but to do it by illegal means. And here, the key thing to note is the provision, right? Is the proviso, not provision, sorry, is the proviso, right? And the proviso is also very similar to what is found in 107B, okay? There must be, right, some other act that was done by one or more parties in pursuant of the agreement. Then only it becomes conspiracy. So just agreeing itself is not enough. After the agreement, somebody must have done something, right? Somebody must have done something, unless some act besides the agreement is done by one or more parties to reach to such agreement in pursuant thereof. Okay, so maybe here's a slight difference. In 107B, it talks about an act or an illegal omission. Here it just talks about an act. But usually we know that an act will also include an illegal omission. So generally, it is similar to 107B. Right? Illustration A helps us to understand this better. A and B agree to embark on a bombing campaign, right? And either of them commits an act in furtherance of the agreement, such as they acquire the ammonium nitrate or other bomb-making components, then even though they have not gone on their bombing campaign, they will be guilty of conspiracy. Even if they have not even identified the bombing targets and no bombing was actually attempted. Illustration B, A willfully knowing joins the enterprise consisting of B, C, and D, where they share a common criminal purpose to commit certain offenses such as attacking civilian objects, murder, terrorism. And then at least one of them acts on the plan by surveilling targets. So they're going to check on where they're going to attack, or they secure the weapon to be used. Then all four of them will be guilty of conspiracy, even if it was not actually carried out at the end of the day. Okay, so that's criminal conspiracy under 120A. And the punishment is found under 120B. Again, as mentioned, you don't really need to know this for your exams. You're not going to be tested regarding the punishment for the offenses. Okay, so that brings us to the end of participation under Malaysian